Today's guest is someone who understands how influence actually works, in today's world, and more importantly, how to turn that influence into real impact. And that's what it's about. Melanie Warner is a TV host, entrepreneur, CEO of Defining Moments Press, and she's a contributor to Forbes Business Magazine, Business Council. And I'm sorry, I'm losing my breath. Why? Because there's so much here and so much to unpack. Melanie Warner is an amazing person I've been following for years. She has built a global platform helping experts turn their message into authority. And just weeks ago, she took that message to the global stage of the United Nations. Now, listen, I don't know how your day is going, but you want to listen to somebody who has been able to speak at the United Nations. I mean, that's some top-notch stuff. But what makes this conversation different is this. Melanie doesn't just talk about writing books. She talks about building something that moves your life, your business, and your purpose in a real way. So today we're going to get into influence, authority, and purpose. So lean in as we talk to Melanie Warner. Melanie, how are you?
Hey, I'm good. Thank you so much for having me, Darren. Great to be
Oh,
here.
anytime, anytime, anytime. Um, I mean, I don't know where to start other than there's just so much to unpack. And talk to me a little bit about defining moments press.
So, Defining Moments Press actually began because many years ago, I had a bucket list, right? Of all I wrote this list when I was 18 and I
Mhm.
said, "Hey, I want to write, I want to do all these things in my lifetime." And I thought it was going to take a whole lifetime to do. And I wrote on the top of the list things I want to do before I die, right?
Mhm.
And then I was in my mid 30s, flash forward. I was married, I had kids. I found the list and I had done almost everything on the list. And so I
Wow.
started marking it off and realized, wow, I guess I need a new list. But there was one thing left on that list that I hadn't done, and that was write a book. So I'm like, someday I'm going to write this book. So I shove it in the drawer. I forget about it. In my mind, I'm like, I need a new list because basically this is, and I remember writing in my journal, this is either a new chapter in my life. It's like the perfect time to start something new or to die because it's like I'm at the end of my journal. I'm at, the end of my bucket list. And little did I know, within a few days, I was in the hospital. I ended up in the hospital. There was an accident. I was bleeding out. I learned later I had 90 seconds left to live. I lost
Oh,
percent of the blood in my body. And the first thing that went through my head was obviously, what about my family? I thought I was dying. What about my laundry? Um, and then I thought, what about that book? And did I manifest this? Because I wrote things I want to do before I die.
mhm.
And here I am dying. So I
Right.
realized the power of words, especially when you put them on a piece of paper as goals. There are things on that list that I forgot all about that I even wanted,
Sure.
that came to fruition, or that I decided I didn't want them anymore when they happen. And so I think sometimes we outgrow things that we write, and that we want to be a certain type of person, or we want to do this in a career when we're a kid and then a
Mhm.
teenager and then in our 20s, and we outgrow choices in our lives. So that whole thing of like, I got to write a book. And so what happened then is, well, I'm here. So I lived, spoiler alert to that story. I
Yes.
survived. But sadly, a few days later, I had another defining moment as I held my son Carson in my arms as he took his last breath. And I
I'm
don't
so
know,
sorry about that.
thank you. I don't know if you're a parent, but uh,
Yes.
it was my worst nightmare. I never thought I would survive something like that. And I just shut down so hard emotionally that I just didn't care if anything survived, to be honest. I didn't know how to process it. I couldn't function. It was like the deepest, darkest place I've ever been. And I had these other kids that I had to figure it out. I couldn't stay in that dark space, right? And so it ended up, I ended up shutting down a business that I had spent 20 years building, and I was making over $1 million a year. And all of a sudden I went from like, you know, hero to zero. Like I went from like Prada to nada, like boom, overnight. And this was also during the last big recession that we had. So all my parachutes were failing. I had real estate, I had stocks, I owned a business, I had multiple streams of income that all failed. And then I was dealing with this grief on top of that. And then I went through divorce, bankruptcy, foreclosure, even tax audits. Like it was just like when it rains, it pours. I felt like the whack-a-mole game where
Oh,
the minute
sure.
I try to pop my head out, I'd get hit again. And it was just this wave of grief and loss that just kept happening for years. And finally, I was like, I can I really need to figure out how to get out of this hole. And I can either start a new business or I can get a job. Now, most people, their biggest fear is losing their job. Mine would be getting one because I've been an
Right.
entrepreneur for so many years and I was not a good employee because I wanted to do things my way. So I ended up writing a book. That was kind of like I'm not going to take this time for granted. I'm grateful to be alive. And now I need to write this book. So I wrote my first book, which was called Coping with the Loss of a Child. And it was really a resource for other parents who had gone through loss. In fact, I have a copy right here. It's right here. This is my original book that I wrote many years ago.
And people, I'm going to stop you there for half a second.
Yeah.
This is a book I know about and read because you may remember I used to run a nonprofit in California before I moved to Cape Cod that dealt with addiction and the fentanyl overdose, and that was a book, one of the books that we would recommend for people
Oh,
to
thank you
read.
so much for that, Darren. And it just was something from my heart. I thought if this could be a love letter to other parents, if I could just give them resources and support and tools where they don't have the losses that I had. That was my intention, is really, I didn't know if it was going to make any money. I didn't know how many books I was going to sell. And I certainly didn't have like a back end offer and all these other things that I've learned the hard way, right? And I also thought I had a limited belief. I thought I have to have a major publishing deal for anyone to take it seriously. Because back then, it's like the only self-published books looked like self-published books with really bad titles and covers. And now we've got AI books that are terrible, that aren't even quality. And so I felt like I poured so many years into this process of learning how to do this. I spent so much money, hundreds of thousands of dollars in courses and coaching and mentorship and to try to learn all these things like how to write a book, how to build a funnel, how to create an offer. And then what happened is I had this major publisher. It was Chicken Soup for the Soul. That was their
Mhm.
company. And my mentors were Mark Victor Hansen and Jack Canfield. And so Mark Victor Hansen gave me a publishing deal with his company. And I was so excited. And we were going to release this book as a Chicken Soup for the Soul book. And then all of a sudden, they sold the company. And my book went along with everything else as an asset. And I met with a new owner. I realized they were going in a different direction. Nothing wrong with that. That just wasn't alignment for me and my book. In fact, they told me you're going to have to come in and change all this stuff about your book that was finally almost written. Um, and I had been dragging my feet for years. And then Mark Victor Hansen said something to me that still resonates with me. And I share it with y'all because if you've ever had a goal or a dream in your life and you think, I've got all this time, here's what he said. He said, stop thinking of who your book is going to help and start thinking of who it's going to hurt if you don't finish it.
Love that.
Now, the next day, there was a woman in my hometown that stepped in front of a train and took her own life because her son had died 15 years prior. She had been suffering for 15 years. It's horrible. I knew I had a solution. My own fear, my own doubt, my own imposter syndrome just cost somebody their life. Because if I had had this book out and in my community, I feel like I could have helped her, right?
Mhm.
And I think that the greatest gift you can give another human being, Darren, is the gift of hope.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so I started building a company that curated hope dealers because we got enough dope dealers. Amen. So
Amen.
I said, how can we take these people that have had these crazy experiences, survived it, help them structure what they've learned, create steps and tools that can help somebody else through that same situation. And we become shepherds and stewards to help people through these really horrific times in their life because somebody somewhere has gone through the thing that you're struggling with. And there's always a mentor, a coach, a consultant, whatever you want to call them. There's somebody who's been through it and knows the path. They know where the bombs are buried. They know the steps to take, and they can take you by the hand and walk you through that dark time so that you never have to do it alone. And that was my intention of starting Defining Moments Press. So all of the books that we have published and helped people publish have been kind of like the new chicken soup for the soul in the marketplace. We've been endorsed as that,
Love that. Love
as
that.
the new chicken soup for the soul, because they basically exited the whole um like the whole game. Like they went in a
Hmm.
different direction to where the company itself is not the same. Mark and Jack aren't running it. They trained me. They were my mentors for over 20 years. So I feel like I was stepping into this space. And then I had another mentor by the name of Tony Robbins.
Sure.
So when this first book came out, I made a lot of mistakes. First of all, when the book went, to them, and then I ended up pulling it from them and went to another major publisher. This time it was a Christian publisher, one of the biggest ones on Amazon, who had published all these huge books. I thought, okay, here I'm back on track again. Well, then another 2 years went by because if you have a major publisher, it takes about 2 years. They will take and they'll design your cover. They sell your book in catalogs to book buyers and distributors. So that's how they determine how many to print. And then they will pay for X amount of books to be printed and distributed in bookstores. Now, if there's 6,000 bookstores in the country, keep in mind that 80% of people are buying books online. They're not going into bookstores anymore. So this is where Amazon disrupted the whole industry
Hmm.
because they went direct to consumer. Now you're starting to see this in every industry. You're seeing people go direct to making movies. They're direct to publisher. There are people going direct to consumer, right? You don't like the distributors, the middlemen and women are starting to get cut out, and it's bringing the cost down and it's creating opportunity for everybody, which is pretty cool. And it's also opening up a global platform, which we never had before. Before COVID, if I wanted to do business with someone, I had to physically get in my car and drive and meet with them. And I was limited to just doing something on a local level, right? Unless I got on a plane or had some kind of relationship somewhere else that was cultivated before a Zoom call, because that warm market was always a better, easier way to get clients.
Sure.
Everything I did up until COVID was in person with people. I didn't do a lot on Zoom. And so everything shifted obviously during COVID, but at the same time, I had my book with this major publisher who basically, after 2 years, the book came out, finally released. We sold thousands of copies. Guess how much money I made?
Not a millionaire, I'm sure. Yep.
$0.
Yep. I was going to
They
say. Yep.
never paid me, this publisher, this big Christian publisher who was a mentor, never paid me. Now, he claimed that all these bookstores were going out of business and he wasn't getting paid. I don't know if that was the case, but the point was, I after 2 years not getting any money, never one dime to this day, still not one dime from that company.
It's
I just
unbelievable.
said, you know what? This is for the birds, right? Like this
Hmm.
whole idea that you have to go through a major publisher to get your book done is a joke. And
Yep.
I am never doing that again. I fought legally to get my own rights back to my own book and even had to fight Amazon to prove that I own the rights and not this person. We had a two
Hmm.
year agreement when it was done. Total
Yep.
period took 4 years to get that
Isn't that
book
amazing?
done,
Isn't
to
it
get it
amazing
out,
that,
and get it back.
isn't that amazing? It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Um,
And now
and
here we are in this space where we can literally write books in a few days and get them out and get them published within 7 days. Like that's the beauty. If you have an urgent message, you don't need a major publisher to get it out there. And here's the thing, even if you do, they take 90% of your royalties, and you're lucky if you get $1 a book. And one of my favorite quotes of all time about a book was from a guy named J. Conrad Levinson, and he wrote a book called Guerrilla Marketing.
Mhm.
And someone said, how much money did you make off your first book? He said 10 million, but he only made $35,000 in royalties. The rest of the money came from coaching, consulting, speaking opportunities, newsletters, and the wide open doors that came from him
Yep.
like selling his knowledge. So we
It was
call
almost a lost lead for that.
Yes, so we call it a knowledge broker, right? So
Yep.
now it's like, okay, if you write a book, why do you want to write a book? Let's
Mhm.
just explore that. Is it a list builder? Is it
Mhm.
a lead magnet? Is it a speaker platform? Is it a client conversion model? What's the purpose of writing the book? And most people, they just want to write a book for their own ego, to share their story. And if you ever look at books that start with my story, they don't sell very well because you have to write the book that people want to read, not just the book you want to
Mhm.
write. And I learned that as a journalist a long time ago. I've been in media since I was 15 years old. If I was a DJ on the radio in high school, right? And you have to talk about what your audience wants to talk about, not what you want to promote. As a magazine article, as a journalist in magazines and newspapers, I had to write the stories that the readers wanted to read, not just
Mhm.
promote things. So you learn to create stories and you learn what that conversion looks like to get people to find your information relevant. So I've been in that space for 40 years now, just building those public platforms to share people's stories. So this is something I know a lot about. And so I thought, how can I tie that together with a book? And that's the thing. When you finally understand the power of your own knowledge and what you've overcome in your own life or your business or something, whether you have lost 30 pounds, whether you've repaired your marriage, whether you've found a cure for your own cancer, you have the ability to go share that. And I think a human responsibility to share that with other people in the world. So we just wanted to make that process a lot easier because the sad truth is 88% of people out there in America say they want to write a book and only 1% actually do.
Yeah.
And
And,
those,
and I'm sorry to cut you off. One thing that just kind of add to what you're saying, because I'm a big fan of what you've done for years. And it's okay for you, I mean, the general you, that 1%. How many of those people feel bad about charging money? No, you should charge money.
oh yeah, you're solving a big pain point in this
Thank
country.
you.
And here's the thing, if those out of those 1%, okay, self-published authors are the average, guess how many books they sell on average? Like the most books they sell is 100 books.
100, really?
So if you sell more than that, you're in good shape. My dad is in his 80s and
Hmm.
wrote his first book in his 80s. I helped him launch. Now he's written 4 books. He generates thousands of dollars a month. He's sold thousands of books.
Love
He does
that.
no marketing, no social media, no advertising. He wrote the book people want to read. And the space that he's in, it generates several $1,000s a month just in book sales. So there
Hmm.
are certain books that can make money from just selling books. If you're a fiction author, for sure. But if you're nonfiction, which is my favorite genre because truth is stranger than fiction,
Mine too. Oh, absolutely.
I love sharing true stories about people overcoming really crazy things that no one can believe that this story is amazing, right? So I love those kind of movies. We help people write those stories, whether it's their own story, like a memoir. This is a story that was a memoir that I was a ghostwriter on. This
Oh, I
is
love
this
that.
guy. It's called You're in This Now. This is David Stone's book, and he was featured on Dateline. Um, and I really got involved in that book because I fell in love with the hook. It was just such a crazy, amazing story. This poor guy got sucked into, he was in the wrong place at the wrong time. And so what happened is you can write an entire book around a good hook or a good title.
100%. Yep.
Right? And like that one is an example that is a nonfiction, it's a memoir, but the
Hmm.
story was so strong and it was already on Dateline. So it already had a built-in audience of true crime,
Yep.
nonfiction. And so I'll tell you just real quickly because I want you to understand as you guys are out there thinking of your own stories, how you could take that hook and that helps you get a deal or
Hmm.
figure out who your audience is going to be. So, for example, this one, and I love this. So imagine you meet a friend at church and this is David Stone. His wife's car broke down. His friend from church, Charles, he goes to drop off the car on a weekend at a mechanic shop because his friend Charles from church is a mechanic. He goes to drop off the car, and all of a sudden he hears a noise in the back. He walks around outside. Here's his buddy Charles from church sitting on top of his wife. He'd strangled her and had just killed her.
Oh,
And he turns to you and
oh,
says, "You're in this now. Help me get rid of the body, or I'm going to murder your entire family." And his last name is Capone.
oh.
Okay, what would
Wow.
I get
That's a
chills?
hook. That's a
What
hook.
would you do? What would you do? So that became the hook behind this whole book. Every
Mhm.
question we asked, every podcast, in fact, I'm going to refer him to you because
Please.
he would
I'd
be
love that.
great. He'd be a great guest on your podcast.
I would
And
love
there's a
that.
whole redemption story. So then there became this Christian angle that we could bring into his redemption of
Mhm.
this, this guilt that he had to live with. So now we have the true crime audience, we have nonfiction, like
Mhm.
memoir audience, and we have a Christian audience where he has a redemptive story behind it. So we have three different big
Yep.
markets to market to. So when you're trying to get your book out there, here's the thing Jack Canfield taught me, and Jack Canfield from Chicken Soup for the Soul, he and Mark Victor Hansen have sold more books than any human being on this planet.
Yep.
So listen to the people who have what you want.
Yep.
So they said to me, it's 10% writing, 90% marketing,
100.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. So listen, anybody can shout in a room that's empty. No, you got to convey your message so those who need to hear it, and then respond as you hope that they
Absolutely.
would. Absolutely.
Absolutely. And then if you're going to do this in your business, like anybody out there that has a business and or you have a business, a nonprofit, some type of platform, and you don't have a book, you're losing 6 or 7 figures a year. That's
Hmm.
how critical it is because there's nothing more like credibility and authority building as writing a book. Like we literally say this person is the expert who wrote the book on it. So, you might know thousands of attorneys or thousands of real estate agents in your own community. How many of them have written a book?
Right.
Probably none,
Right.
right?
Hmm.
So it automatically gives somebody that instant credibility and authority in their industry, and it helps become a marketing tool to sell their service over their competitor. And everybody wants to position themselves better, like better than their competitor. They
Of
want
course.
more clients and less competition.
Yep.
And so most people don't think of it as a marketing tool, but we throw away flyers and business cards, but we don't throw away books.
No, no, definitely not. I have a room full of them. Um, and what people don't understand, and it's kind of a nuance, is you have to put yourself and your ideas first, but at the same time, you don't do it alone. And that's I want to segue into the seven-figure book camp that's coming up in Ohio. And I love the intimacy of it, like 25 people there. But we'll
Yes.
talk about that. But listen, one of the things, born and raised in Brooklyn, where 16 years, had my family out in California. You know, everybody, you need people. I got people, right? When somebody says, I got people, I got somebody for that. Networking. And, Melanie, talk a little bit about how you will help that person who understands that shy people don't eat. You need to get your message out there. Um, how will this camp help them? And who is this camp not for?
Perfect. So thank you for letting me talk about this because it's one of my favorite things in the whole world to do is to help people do things that they don't think are possible, where they go, I've had this book in me for years, just like I did. And one thing I've learned, Darren, the hard way when I was facing what I thought was the last 90 seconds of my life, and I thought, what about my book? Is that someday is not a deadline. And so we all think we have more time. Someday I'm going to write a book. Someday I'm going to get my act together. Someday I'm going to find Prince Charming or whatever. You know what I mean? Like it's the, and when you're living in the someday, that's what creates hope, right? But it doesn't actually, those goals, those dreams aren't goals. They feel like they're
Mhm.
just dreams. I'm just going to go dream. And one of my biggest frustrations is these people that do book camps or book writing retreats. And there's people that come to them just because it's a fun retreat and they never actually write a book. And it drives me crazy because I'm so results driven. And I said, I need to change that. So we created the 7-figure boot camp where you can come in a weekend and get your book written, You can build a book funnel. We have all the templates for every industry. We've done this for the over 300 different industries, whether
Wow.
you're writing a cookbook, a fiction book, a memoir, doesn't matter what kind of book you're writing. Anybody, anywhere can write their book in a few days. And it's because people don't know the process. If you know the steps and the process, the same way if my grandmother has her amazing Grandma Muma's chocolate chip cookies, if I didn't have her recipe and I had to try to figure it out from scratch, it's going to take me a lot longer. If she's
Hmm.
standing right next to me in the kitchen with her recipe, I probably am not going to fail, right? Like
Hmm.
I guarantee you I can make the best chocolate chip cookies because I've got the best teacher and I know the process and I have all the right ingredients. And this is where I see people make this mistake. They're doing all the things, but they're doing them in the wrong sequence. And so what we're going to do is step with you. Now, I do this one-on-one with my team. I have a house up near Yosemite in California, a couple of different houses, right? And I do VIP days where people will come fly out, hang out for the day with their whole team and our team, and we build all these assets out in one day. Now that's $100,000 because we're building assets that are going to generate $1 million. So that's a pretty good exchange.
Hmm.
However, that's not for everybody. That's for people that are super busy and just want to get it done quick. But I thought, how could I take that same concept, spread it into a weekend, and bring 20 people with our
Hmm.
team? And they can even bring a guest or somebody with them on their team and get this stuff done, get it extracted out of their head and out of their hearts and into
Hmm.
the hands and the hearts of the people that it's really going to influence. Because I will tell you, there are people that are alive today because I finally got out of my own way and got my book done.
Oh,
So
yeah.
in these few days, we're going to be live at a book camp. This camp is a 92 acre, it used to be a winery. And it
Wow.
was it was bought by a TEDx guy, Alex Sheehan. It's called Camp Because I Said I Would.
Love that. Love that
It is.
affirmation.
Where else would you go finish your book? And get this, we have a special guest, McKinley Brown, who is on the TV show right now, The Voice. She was also on American Idol. She's one of the finalists on the air right now. She is going to come and do a private concert for all of us
Oh, that's going to
at
be
this
great.
event.
That's
So
going to be great.
isn't that amazing? Like, so anybody that wants to get their book completely like done, just get it off my plate, my bucket list, it's done. Whether it's an aspirational book or it's a business book, it doesn't matter what kind of book you want to write. We can get it done. And we've got all kinds of our coaches that are going to be there on specific book types. We're going to help you get your cover, your title, your outline, actually write your book and build a funnel if you want to sell it directly on your own website. We own all these templates. It's proprietary. It's called the client conversion model method. So we've been using that in our own
Smart.
books. We've been teaching our clients this process for years. In fact, they've generated over $150 million using my techniques called the client conversion model method for business owners too. And then there's some people like my dad, just in his 80s, wanted to write a book. And it was a hobby for him. I mean, he's been a Sunday school teacher for 60 plus years. So he wrote Bible study books from his lesson plans.
So
And
when a small business or medium-sized business or large business want to talk about how they were able to move from the lemonade stand to the small little place behind, a kiosk to their own, brick and mortar and on and on and on, or the person who just has this in their belly. And how do they invest in this? It's not a cost, people. It's an investment because the ROI hunts and you get paid back what you put in. So, what type of investment would this be for the 25 or so people that could be there?
yeah, absolutely. So if you were to go and hire a ghostwriter, it's usually anywhere from 40 to $50,000 for someone to write your book.
Hmm.
Have a $15,000 funnel, like all of these expenses to have someone do it for you. For this event itself, it's 3 days. It includes the food and your room,
Love that.
right? And it's only 5K. That's
Right.
it to
That's
finally get your book done. And let's just say you charge $5,000, or let's be conservative and say you only charge $1,000. Let's say you get your book, you come, you get your book done. Do you believe that if you get your book done, you can even give a book away, like one book a day? Do you believe that
right.
you can just give away a book a day to help somebody somewhere in the world?
Sure.
If you were able to do that, and you only charge $1,000. Using the client conversion model formula, 20 to 30% of people that read that book will want to work with you if you
Yep.
use the formula and do it correctly and give them tools and the process and everything. So what happens is the book is introducing people to your process, and then you just charge to implement the process. So they can read the book, or they can hire you to take them by the hand and walk them through the steps and the tools, right? So
Hmm.
here's the deal. Let's say you only charge $1,000, which is very conservative. And if you give away a book a day, we know that 30% of those people will come work with you, and you only charge $1,000. That's giving one book a day for a year is 365 books. At 30% is 109 books. At $1,000 a person each as a client, that's
Hmm.
six figures.
That's
That's
right.
very conservative. If you're a doctor, an accountant, an attorney, what if you gave away 3 books a day or 5 books? What if you
Hmm.
charge three to $5,000?
That's right.
If you were to charge 10K and you give one book away a day, that's over $1 million a year.
Hmm. Oh,
Isn't that
absolutely.
cool?
Yeah, oh,
Like
it's,
that's
it's it's
crazy.
great. I mean, I told you I lived in California in Fresno for with Clovis for so many years. And the one thing I thought of was, for example, and I mean, it's a wonderful thing to do, and people do it. That's great. Continue to do it. But you get one of those luxury boxes at Chancey Park with Save on Center, and you're spending a lot more than that to try to get the same thing done that you can get for $5,000 when you're talking about how your widget or your methodology or your story is helping people.
It's a
And
marketing tool for sure.
100%. I mean, and again, also
And
like
I,
you said about think about the people who are going to be hurt because you didn't do this.
right. I was trying to find, I have a big stack of books here, but I have a local client here because you mentioned Fresno and Clovis,
Hmm.
that you may know. Her name is Rita Gladding.
Hmm.
She wrote a book called Gavin Gone because her son was actually jogging training for the marathon. He was, in the school system here as a principal. He was well loved in the community.
I know all
Jogging,
about I know the whole
and
story.
he was
I was
hit
there at
and
the
killed.
time. Yep,
Yeah, he was
I was
hit and
there.
killed by an impaired driver who there
Right
was a
near my house. Right near my
California
house.
loophole. Yep, right up off Bryant. It was an impaired driver, and there was a California loophole that said if you hit a driver and hit and run and then lawyer up and come back, and even if you admit it, there's a lesser sentence. And so this person left him to die, ran away scared. It was an underage person who was, on drugs or alcohol, like some kind of impairment. And she spent years, she used this book to start a foundation to change the law,
Yep.
right? And to go and take on the state of California and say, this is not okay. So she's an amazing woman.
Hmm.
And she's in her 70s when all this happened. And so she wrote this book. She changed the legislation in California as just a mom who was upset about how bad this process was. And she didn't come from a lot of means or like the ability to, she didn't know how to do any of that. And then
Yep.
she also created a foundation, and they do fundraisers, they do a golf tournament. So every year we go
Hmm.
to the golf tournament, we make an investment, and everybody gets a book in the bag.
That's
Right, where
great.
she does like I was with her at the women's conference. There were 3,000 women there, and she and I had a booth together, and she was
Oh,
out
that's great.
in books 10 to 1 because she was standing out there saying, if you make $100 donation to my foundation, the Gavin Gladding Foundation, you get a free book. Now, that book only cost her $2 or $3
Right.
because the wholesale cost from Amazon, it's called print on demand.
Hmm.
So that's the beauty. You don't have to print thousands of books and put them in your garage anymore. And that's where the other fear people have. I don't know what to write about. I don't know how to get started. I don't know the process. I don't know how to make money. All of those are excuses. So
Hmm.
for me, I just want to get her done. I'm like, let's just do this event. I'm going to sit down with 20 people. We've got a lot of the spots are sold already. And especially since we announced, I have a call right after this with McKinley and her dad to go over the details and the song
Oh,
choice
that's great.
stuff. And it's like it's just going to be so much fun, you guys. So I would highly encourage you to do it. Um, and I can give you a link that you can drop, Darren, for the people that have questions.
Please
They
do. Yeah,
yeah, they can
want to
hop
put
on
this
a
together.
call with our team and say, like, we will guide them through the process of like, here's their book idea, here's the best, we're going to give you a map to show you the fastest way to get there. And what happens is people say, like, imagine saying, I want to go to Hawaii. I'm like, okay, do you want to swim? Do you want to take a boat? Or do you want to get on
Right.
a plane and be there in a few hours, right?
Hmm.
And so it's the same thing. It's how fast do you want to get this book done? How urgent is it to get this out of you? And think of the people that you're going to help. So if you've been thinking about it, dreaming about it, threatening to write a book, the longest I've heard was 60 or 70 years. There were people in our groups that had waited that long.
I
You
can
know,
imagine.
now is the time to get it
Yep.
done, and you have no excuse, and you have every resource. It's not 100 grand, it's 5K. And if you want to bring a guest, it's
Well,
only
yes,
2,500.
that's great.
So you're getting two people for 7,500 who get the book, the funnel, the support, two
Yep.
books.
Yep. And I mean, and double the knowledge because somebody retains this, somebody retains this. They, oh, I forgot that. I didn't hear that. I was checking my messages, which you should not do, people, when you are at something like this. But anyway, before I let you go, because I know time is short for
Yeah.
the both of us, talk a little bit about how you were asked to present at the UN and what that was like.
Oh
That'll
my
be my
gosh,
last
so much
question.
fun. Yeah, so here's the thing. Your book gives you authority. Your book gets you booked. Okay. Your book gets you booked on TV, on podcasts. As an expert in your field. You could get paid as an expert witness, depending
Mhm.
on where you are in your industry. There's so much credibility. I mean, it's like when you write a book, there's like Jesus and then authors, right? Like
Right, right.
all of a sudden, you're like, wow, this person's the authority instantly. And so it's the fastest way to build that credibility. So I have a friend that I met at the UN that I was helping them with their book, and they invited me to speak at the UN. And I said, well, instead of just me coming and talking, can I bring some people with me? So I actually brought some of our authors and speakers with us. I've done it a few times now. It's been amazing. The first time was the General Assembly, and I
Hmm.
spoke the same day as President Trump.
Amazing.
It was just incredible to be in that space that is so sacred. And the whole city of New York was completely shut down. It was insane. It was blocked off for blocks. There were protesters, there was Secret Service. I had to laugh because I'm like, if it's Secret Service and they have signs on their car, like Secret Service, it's not
Right,
so secret, right?
right, that's right.
But it's just like, it was just so crazy, like to be in that space and speak. So in September, I spoke about The Cash Value of a Woman, which is a
Mhm.
book that I have that just came out. And we just launched this book 2 weeks ago at the United Nations event, the Women's UN event, their
Yeah.
70th meeting. And so the UN General Assembly has been meeting for 80 years, and then the women of the world got together and started their own conference in March of every year because it's Women's History Month. So it's amazing to think of what the United Nations has done for the world, how they
Yes.
continue to not be a political venue. They're more focused on helping solve problems in the world, in and bringing people together about peace. And a lot of their mission is permanent mission is water safety of Africa. And
Yes.
so we partnered with them. We did this side event where we got to go in and speak. There were these ambassadors and all these people there. And yeah, it was amazing. So, and then this time they actually broadcast it live. So people got to watch it uh,
Me.
broadcast from the United Nations. And then we got footage from that now I can use for credibility. I have two
Mhm.
different speeches from the United Nations. I have photos with ambassadors, with me and them, with my book,
Mhm.
endorsing my book in the photos, right? So it's just everything you do starts with that book. It creates so much credibility. I even met with the UN bookstore to see how I can get my books in the bookstore there and what that process looks like. So it was so incredible. It was definitely one of the very few people on the planet have had that experience.
Yeah.
They
That's
don't
it's
invite
amazing.
people outside of the UN ever. You
Right.
have to be an ambassador to speak on their stage or a world leader.
Mhm.
The other thing is, I spoke in India not too long ago, live in front of 700,000 people.
Wow.
The entire city came out, and there was like my voice broadcast all over the whole city. There were families on the highway pulling over the video screens, and it was so crazy. Um, and there's very few people on the planet that have had that experience to speak live to 700,000 people at one time. So when you start to think about those experiences, for me, I'm so driven by just giving hope to people.
And
When
you've earned everything
thank
that
you,
has come your way.
thank you,
And please keep up the great work. And hopefully we'll speak again and
thank
ongoing. And I think what you're doing is so beneficial and helpful to humankind. I really do.
thank you, thank you. Like I said, we are curating hope dealers.
Mhm.
And we want to recruit. We want all of our speakers to write books. We want our authors to learn how to be speakers so they can sell more books and make more impact. And then
Mhm.
we want to teach everybody how to have some type of offer on the back end, whether you're a charity, whether you're for profit, whether it's a hobby. Like there's a way to monetize your knowledge and your expertise. And you don't have to be the guru on the hill with a big car and the great hair, like to have impact. You don't have to be Miss America or Miss
Right.
California to help somebody lose 25 pounds and feel good about themselves. So we all have these special skills and talents, and we all have defining moments in our life that can turn into serving somebody else in a big way.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. And we'll talk to you again down the road. I much
Thank
appreciate your
you.
time. Bye now.
Thank you for having me, and I hope to hear from you guys. I
You
can't wait
will.
to see about your little book babies and what y'all create. So thank you again for having me. I appreciate it.